This is the Gita Sloka, Chapter 5, 27 and 28 slokas. Chapter 5, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. We'll do the Mangalachana prayers first. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जलाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप गदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावभूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादां सह गणललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण भगवान की जय प्रभुपाद की जय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय कृष्ण भगवान की This is the chapter 5th Karma Sannyasa Yoga 27 and 28 both slokas are together here. स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यां चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानो समो कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणो यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धेर्मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यान् चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानो समो कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणो यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धेर्मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः स्पर्शान् कृत्वा बहिर्बाह्यान् चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानो समो कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणो यदेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धेर्मुनिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यः सदा मुक्त एव सः स्पर्शान् sense objects such as sound kritva keeping bahi external bahyan unnecessary chakshuhu eyes cha also eva certainly antare between bhruvo the eyebrows prana apano up and down moving air samau in suspension kritva keeping suspension kritva keeping nasa abhyantara within the nostrils charino blowing yata controlled indriya senses manaha mind buddhi intelligence munihi the transcendentalist moksha for liberation parayanaha being so destined vigata having discarded ichha wishes bhaya fear krodha anger yaha one who sada always muktaha liberated eva certainly saha he is. Translation by the Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breath within the nostrils. Suspending means samang, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist, aiming at liberation, becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. When he is controlled by his mind and senses, with this shamadama and all that, then his aim is liberation. He becomes free at that time, desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. One who is in this state is liberated. Or one who is trying to get the liberation should be in this state. Okay. Now notes, being engaged in Krishna consciousness, again back to Krishna consciousness, one can immediately understand one's spiritual identity, and then one can understand the Supreme Lord by means of devotional service. One can understand the Supreme Lord by means of devotional service, like Machitta Matkata Pranaha Bodhayanta Parasparam Kadayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyamti Charamanti Cha Tesham Sadatiktanam Bhajatam Pritipurokam Dadami Buddhyogam Tam Enamapyantite Tenameshanukantanu Aham Jnanajam Tamaha Nashayamyatma Bhava Jnanadipena Bhasvata. That is what it is in the Chatusloki. One who is constantly doing the devotional service, then he can understand the Supreme Lord. When one is well situated in devotional service, one comes to the transcendental position, qualified to feel the presence of the Lord in the sphere of one's activity. This particular position is called liberation in the Supreme. After explaining the above principles of liberation in the Supreme, the Lord gives instruction to Arjuna as to how one can come to that position by practice of the mysticism or yoga known as Ashtanga Yoga, which is divisible into the eightfold procedures called Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. In the 6th chapter, the subject of yoga is explicitly detailed. At the end of the 5th, it is only preliminarily explained. So he's kind of giving introduction of the 6th chapter in the 5th chapter itself. And he's also saying that the purpose of yoga is what? That is what he is explained. One has to drive out sense objects such as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell by pratyahara process in yoga. Drive out the sense objects. Pratyahara. And then keep the visions of the eyes between the eyebrows and concentrate on the tip of the nose with half closed lids. There is no benefit in closing the eyes altogether. Between them, there is every chance of falling asleep. Nor is there a benefit in opening the eyes completely, because then there is a hazard of being attracted by sense objects. The breathing, that's why you should be half closed and half open. The breathing movement is restrained within the nostrils by neutralizing the up moving and down, and down moving air within the body. By the practice of such yoga, one is able to gain control over the senses, refrain from outward sense objects, and thus prepare oneself for liberation in the Supreme. This yoga process helps one become free from all kinds of fear and anger, and thus feel the presence of Super Soul in the transcendental situation. This yoga will becomes free from all kinds of fear and anger. In other words, Krishna consciousness is the easiest path of executing yoga principles. This will be thoroughly explained in the next chapter. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always engaged in devotional service, does not risk losing his senses to some other engagement. This is a better way of controlling the senses than by the Ashtanga Yoga. So whatever the yoga you want to do it, you do it. Whatever the Bhakti Yoga or whatever may be the process, the thing is, this is the goal. Liberation is the goal. For that, control the mind and senses is the main thing. And what happens, the result is, you should not have the desire, and then anger, and then fear. Now, Vidya Prakash Nandagiri explains more details. Again, same thing basically. So, all the sense objects should be outside only. They should not come inside. That is one thing. Sparshan Kutva Bahirbahyan. So, all the Sparshan Kutva, all the sense objects should be outside. They should not come into our heart. That is the Sparshan Kutvan Bahirbahyan. So keep it outside only. Don't keep inside. Next is Chakshashchaivantare Bhruvoh. Then be on the meditative mode, and that is called Keshari Mudra. And the one who is in the meditative mode, there are some techniques given. So the techniques given are like the eyes should be half closed, half open, and then focus on the middle of the eyebrows. Sometimes somebody focuses on the tip of the nose or maybe the heart. or maybe in the Bhruvor Madhye, Sahasraksha, Sahasrashesha, Sahasraksha. So this is a kind of like Dhyana Yoga. So whatever these are like techniques. And also the pranayama also, that is next concept. So that is what it is. Chakshushpaivantre Bhruvor, that is what dhyana is. So first you don't think about the objects, all the sense objects and everything, 5 sense objects should be outside only. So you should not be encouraging them to come inside. That is one thing. So you'll be stopping all the engagements. And then Chakshushpaivantre Bhruvoho, then the focus on the eyes on these points 1, 2 or 3 or 4. Pranapana samokrutva, then control the air. That should be samokrutva. Suspending means suspension. Suspending means not totally stopping, but it's on the samokrutva. It's all equal, like this. It's a great practice actually. Then what happens is with this, the mind will be controlled, because they'll say that there is always one Shakti, one Atma Shakti. It's like if you take the trunk of the tree, one branch is called Pranam, and the other one is Manas. So when one is controlled, the other one is also controlled. That's why when you see that when the mind goes fast, again the air of the prana also goes fast. And also mind is made up of the air. So this is the technique. Then yatendriya manobuddhihi. So the focus of all this word, indriyas, manas and buddhi should be controlled. Yatendriya manobuddhi. So the one, indriyas, manas and buddhi should listen to us, not that I will be listened by the indriyas. So indriyas, mano, buddhi. So that is what it is. Yatendriya manobuddhi. And then, so that is the purpose of that is mainly abhyasa vairagyas are the main things. So one who is with the abhyasa and vairagya, yatendriya manobuddhi, that yata indriya manobuddhi, mind should be controlled basically. And the main Krishna explains in the 6th chapter that to control the mind, basically indriyas, mind, everything, abhyasa vairagya. Keep on practicing certain things, certain ways. And then vairagya means take the knowledge and what is permanent and what is impermanent. Then moksha parayanaha. Then what happens is like the ajnanis are foolish, they are bhoga parayana. They are always parayana, mat parayanaha. The goal should be, here the mumukshu, the goal should be the moksha, whereas for the ajnanis, it should be the ajnani should be the bhoga parayana. So the mumukshas. So the mumukshatva means always think about this, and then think about the goal of the life, and then who are us, and then why we are entangled in this body. Then what is the things we need to do? That mukti means ahankaradi dehantan bandhana jnana kalpitan saswarupavabodhena muktumicha mumukshata. The mumukshutva means ahankaradi dehantan bandhana jnana kalpitan. These are all the bondages because of the ajnana, and all this because of the all these are all happening because of the ajnana. So it's like the formula is avidya kama karma. So avidya kama karmadi pashabandham vimochadam kashyaknuyad vinatmanam kalpakodi shreiravi. So we have to work on our own, and this is the formula and to remove the ajnana, and no one can help us. That is that avidya kama karma. Because of that it is happening. Now what is the moksha means? Again ahankara dehantan, because of the ahankara, thinking that I am this body, and then whatever the things are happening, ahankara dehantan bandhana jnana kalpitan, all these bondages are happening. Swaswarupavabodhena, the real nature, the Shastra says, the Acharya says that our true nature is the soul which is free from all these bondages. If you say the ahamkara, mind, body and everything, the nature of the soul and the nature of the matter is entirely different, entirely opposite. The nature of the soul is eternal Satchitananda, eternal consciousness and bliss. That is the nature of the soul. If you see the body nature, either you take the gross body or the subtle body, then here the Atman is eternal, whereas that body is temporary. And then the consciousness, the Atma is conscious. What is meant by consciousness? Conscious means the knowing, the knower. The knowing thing is called consciousness. I know, all this knower, that's called consciousness. Whereas if you really see that the power of the consciousness, if you see the matter, that's inert matter, and it's a jada. That means it is not consciousness, it is just like a matter only. That is the nature of that. So it won't know by itself. For example, if you see the body won't know by itself. Until the consciousness passes through the Shakti of the body, then only the body knows it. That's why when do the surgery or anything, you cut the body and then the body doesn't react anything. It is just a matter only. Similarly, it applies to when you go to the little higher level, the Indriyas also jada, because when you see the Shakti of the consciousness passing through the Indriyas, then only the Indriyas will work. Otherwise, Indriyas it won't even work. That's why you might have these Karmendriyas like the hands, legs and everything. But until the Shakti passes, the consciousness passes, the hands and even the hands and legs won't move. That's why if you see that is the main thing between the matter and the consciousness. And again, and also if you see the mind, which is the mind is controls all the Indriyas. When you see the mind is totally away from whatever you are seeing, then whatever, even though the eye is seeing the objects, but still it won't register it. That means it's a jada, it's a matter. So it's not knowable things. So it won't know it because the power of the mind is not there. That is one level high. And if you really see the mind, it wanders all the time. Then if you really go to the buddhi, the buddhi is focusing on one thing, and then if the buddhi is not there, and then if buddhi focuses on one thing, and even though the mind tries to wander, it won't even wander also. That's what mind is jada compared to the buddhi. And if you see our Atman, the buddhi is also jada compared to our Atma. Unless our Shakti passes through the buddhi won't even act. Then the example you see is like the deep sleep. In the deep sleep, all the buddhi will be slept. That is becomes like a jada. Whereas us, the consciousness is always active. Always active. Even if you see the three states of the life in a day, if you really see the states, it is three states like a waking state and dreaming state and the deep sleep state. All these states are the states of the body and mainly the buddhi. And if you really see all this, the consciousness is passing through all these things, all these states. That's where the buddhi is experiencing all these states. So again, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Koshas, and all this, the energy is given by the consciousness only. So that is what, if you really see that is what consciousness. And then eternal Satchit Ananda, the bliss. The real bliss is us. Our nature is a bliss. Whereas if you see the matter, matter is a misery only. Everything is misery because there is a starting point, there is an ending point, and the body will die, and it will start, and then it will grow, and then it will childhood, then maintain it at the middle age, maintain. Then after that, at the old age, it will dwindle, and then finally it will die. The body will die. Same thing happens to the Indriyas also. The more in the beginning, the Indriyas are less, and then they get the more power in the middle age. Then the Indriyas will be going down because of the limitations. Again, same the mind and buddhi. If you really see every day, the mind is active, and sometimes it will become dull because of these gunas, three gunas. So that is how all this matter is not Satchitananda, and then it's all totally misery because it enjoys. It's like it tries to things that it is enjoying, but ultimately it's a dukkhalayam only. Ultimately, the end of the thing matter is a dukkham only, whereas our nature is a bliss. So that's what, keeping this jnana in mind, we should work for the moksha parayanaha. That's what, trying to work for the liberated state. Then what happens? Moksha parayanaha, Then Vigatecha Bhayakrodha, Yatendriya Manobuddhi, Purirmokshaparayanaha. Vigatecha Bhayakrodha. Vigata means remove, leave it. Icha Bhaya Krodha, the desire, anger, and then the fear. So mainly because of the jnana, thinking that I am the body, because as we are the soul, we don't need any desire because we are the Purnam. We are full of knowledge. We are always there eternal and we are full of bliss. There is nothing to aspire for it. That's why it's called Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva, Vishishyate. And further, that's what. Also, the matter is, it's a midya. It's not at all there. Only the Brahma is a Satyam. That is, truth is Brahma. Matter is untruth, false. That's why the matter, you don't need to worry about the matter. And because of the ajnana, and even avidya is also temporary, it's also mithya. Because of the ajnana, we are thinking the body. That's why we are desiring something. And because of the desire, once the desire is fulfilled, you get the fear of losing that. That's why you always wanted to keep it. And if the desire is not fulfilled, you get the anger. So these are all mainly the source of all this is ajnana. And Vigatecha Bhayakrodha, he says so many times he says remove the desires. So that's why with the jnana, remove the desire from the heart. And then always think about the Atma Jnana. Then with that, what happens is that these Kama, Krodha and Bhaya is remove it. So either you, as a sadhakas, you will be trying to remove it. Once you are achieved the liberated states, you won't have all these things. You won't be having the desire or the fear or the anger. That's why fearlessness is your state of realization. And what happens is when these three bad qualities are removed from the heart, then it is how it is. The examples given is in the lake, all that dirt won't be there, and also in the mirror, the dust won't be there. When you clean up the dust, the mirror will reflect our true nature. Similarly, the lake, when the dirt is removed from the lake, then you can see your own nature. Then again, the same time, in the lamp, the surrounding the chimney, it is called. When the chimney is full of this black stuff, because of that, and if you remove that, then you can see the deepam or the lamp very clearly. That is called nirmala. Nirmala Hridaya Jnana Bhaskara. So when the heart is totally clean and then totally visible, when the heart is, then that's where our true nature, our Atman will be reflected, and that's where you get the real self-realization. So the main for it is to clean up the heart. That is the main thing. Then that is called Munihi. Then Etendriya Manobuddhihi Murir Moksha Vigatecha Bhayakrodha Sada Mukta Eva Saha. That is called Muni. Muni means Mananatvat Shiratvat Iti Munihi. So that means the one who is always thinking about the higher stuff, always researching on the higher stuff of the realization, and then finally getting into that is called the Muni. That's why even in the normal worlds also, if you're really focusing on certain project or anything, and if you're focusing on that, so you're also called as a Muni, but in in a lower level stuff. But if you really aim for the higher stuff of self-realization, and if you are focusing on that part, then your project, you are called a Muni. Sada Muktaha means the one who achieves all this is always Muktaha, is always a liberated state. So that means for liberation, you don't need to go anywhere and you don't need to achieve anything. The only thing is you need to follow these things. So that's why, so the mainly for the moksha praptiki, what are the things we should be remembering in this sloka is, there are in these two slokas. First is Shabdadi Vishayatyaga, all the objects set outside the objects are keep it outside only. Number second is dhyana, ekagra dhyana, focus on the mind, and then third one with the pranayama, and then the fourth one is indriya manobuddhi nigraha, the controlling the mind and the senses, and then the third one is manana shiratvat, thinking about the mind, always thinking about the realization, and then moksha parayanatva is the next one, that means always your aim is the liberation. And then with that, remove the kama, krodha and bhaya. So all the kama, desire, and then fear, and then bhaya, and then the krodha is anger. So when you remove all these three things, that is where you get the moksha or the liberated state. So again the sloka comes like this. Sparshan kutvan bahirbhayans चक्षुश्चैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तर धारिणौ चारिणौ यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धिः मुरिर्मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधः यस्सदा मुक्तैव सः. Yasada mukteva. So all these techniques are mainly for what? Controlling the mind and Indian senses, and also removing the desires, fear and anger. That's where you get the realization, your own true nature. Again, so many slokas, even before, even after also, everything Bhagavan talks about the desirelessness. The desire is the kama, or the lust is the main cause for this material world. When we want to get out from this, the main thing we should have is like a desireless state. That should be our ultimate goal. So slowly we will work towards it, and eventually you should be able to get it to realization. And then we can always say why we need to realize, we are liberate, we are so happy in this world. But if you really say, like each and every moment you say there is a dukkhalayam only, there is no happiness, there is only, even if there is a happiness, that is a very flickering happiness, and that is also happiness coming from our swarupa only. Then the happiness is not in the objects, not in the body, not in the mind, not in the senses, not in the world, not in anywhere. The only residing place for the happiness is our own swarupa, which is Atman, Paramatma. Okay, and then this is what it is. So we'll continue for the next class. Next sloka, the last one in the 5th chapter. Okay, we'll end up here. Hare Krishna. Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.